Hi, welcome back. We are now on to our next signature for this album that we're building. And I am doing something simple, not too extravagant. You will be, if you want, fussy cutting out the dragon off the cutout sheet. And I mounted him on blue cardstock to give him some substance. And I did leave this blue area so that it acted as more of a support base because I didn't want this just hanging out there. You're going to be sliding things in it. But I'm going to tape it and he's going to go down in here and he's going to be your tuck. Up here I'm taking a couple of the smaller pieces and just creating kind of a corner accent with the book and one of the scrolls. Now this piece measures 7 3/8 across by 7 3/4 in its height. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've put a 3/8 of an inch strip on all of my pages because this is my safety zone. I don't want to come any closer to the seam than this when I plant this in there. And it also will take up that extra blue space. We will be covering this later on, your big spine gusset area, but for now this is what I've done. So if you want to do that, you have limited colors because we really haven't played with a lot of paper other than this one, or you can take it, well, you can't take it off in the future. You're pretty much going to be dealing with this piece of paper. I apologize, but it is what I have left, unless you want to cut into another piece of paper and dedicate it for any of the other smaller things that we would be doing. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and put him on. I like to build up, and then I'll give you the measurements as we go forward. So I'm going to stick him. I like to have different elements on some of my tucks when I build albums. It gives you an different visual on it. So see, it acts as a very nice tuck on either side, but yet you still have the security of the bigger base. And then I'm going to go ahead and add these two, if I can pick them up, corner elements. Go. Okay, so that's done. Now I've done a small, on both sides, a small flap. For each of these, and they're going to measure about 4.5 inches with a 1/2 inch score mark. And then you're going to tape them and we're going to place them under the paper. Now when you put this on here, I don't want you coming any closer. I don't want you going over the score mark. Just make sure that your tape is covered up, you're even top to bottom, so that when this folds over, give it another score. When it folds over, you're not seeing the tape underneath. Now I've been trying to put them on doing it this way. Usually I turn it over. We'll see how this goes. All right, now on the inside, I chose this piece of paper. Now you can use either side that you want. I just happen to like the soft leafy elements on this side. And this is going to get glued in. And as far as for the measurements, I just cut to fit. I don't fuss over the minute measurements of paper. I want to stay off of the seam, the score mark. Put this on. And then I'm going to do the same for this side. Okay, so here on this side, in your cutouts, there is this little tag that says my favorite book, and I'm just going to glue a little bit across the top because I'm going to create a tuck with this. So it's just going to come right up here. And then on this side, I took one of the bookmark tags and I'm going to create a tuck for it down here. So I'm going to add a little bit of tape along the length. And I'm just going to bring him in off that edge up about 1/4 inch and put it down. So that's that first build. Now in here, I've used the butterflies for this page. And I'm going to use the moon as a tuck down here in this corner. I'm not doing anything on this side. I'm going to leave this available for photos. So when I'm cutting to fit, this is about what I'm looking for when I'm laying my papers down. I don't like to see big borders. I just personally want to see a hint of the cardstock because that's not the focal point, it's the accent. So it should be in the background, but I know that there are individuals that like to see bigger cardstock borders, and that's perfectly fine. That's what makes your eye happy. So by all means, if you want to see a broader border, do so. It's your album. Okay, and then we'll put Mr. Moon. Come in about 1/4 inch, up about 1/4 inch, and we're going to secure him in place. All right, so we have this done. Now, the next page, we're going to do a little bit of a build-up because we've got to get over this. And so this, your measurements for these two pieces are going to be, and they're odd measurements because this is odd. It's hard to get a half of or an eighth out of an interesting measurement, and I'll show you why. So this is coming in not quite half an inch. It's just over 3/8. So if you cut it down to 3/8, what's half of 3/8? So anyway, the computer said that each panel should be 4.3125 wide, and then the 7 3/4 in the height. So when you go to fit this, keep that in mind, because what I'm trying to do is get you an 1/8 of an inch gusset that will run down the length of this on both sides, but I also want to try and get them as close as possible to come to the center. Now I've already taped mine, and I'm going to go ahead and install them. Now when I made this, it's going to take me a little bit of fussing around here, because when I made this, you're going to do a 1/2 inch score, and then you're going to do a 5/8 score. When I was designing this, I ended up with a 1/2 inch and a 3/4 inch, but that became too big of a gusset. So I had to come down here at 5/8 to make this score line. So I have a little bit of a mess here. So I am trying to keep the actual gusset that I built where it needs to be, and I'm struggling with this because it's really weak. So I'm going to do it this way. Push this forward a little bit. There we go. And there's my 1/8 of an inch gusset. So you'll score at a 1/2, and you're going to score it at 5/8, and that will create your gusset to wrap around what we just built up underneath. Okay, and I think I'm going to do it this way again, but I'm going to turn it over once I get it in place. I don't want to move my right hand, so I'm picking it with my fingernail. It's important to make sure that your gusset is on the edge so that it stands upright. If it's too far back, then your page is going to roll to the back. If it's too far forward, then you're going to have this awkward roll that comes forward. You want this gusset just as straight as it can be on the back. And I'm still roughly about 1/16 off, but it'll have to work. When you're building these and you're wrapping around other elements and you're building this up, this gets wider, this right here. So you have to allow for this when you can't cut, just to answer your question, because I know someone's thinking it, you can't cut and measure based on this, because what happens is what I have now. By the time I wrap around an 1/8 of an inch here, this is what happens. These ends eat up your length. So you end up with these gaps, but it is what it is, and I will just deal with it. But to answer your question on that, you're building up over something and it's taking up space. Okay, so this is what, it's this, whoops. One side has him. We're going to use him later. But we have this on this side of it. Interesting. I didn't think. Nope, that's the front. And that's the front. Wonder why these two aren't matching. I don't remember that. I made it yesterday. There it is. This is the same pattern as right here. Ah, turn it over, knucklehead. Okay, whoops. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I know what I have to do. With that gap, I'm going to have to create an outside closure. So I'm not using any magnets here that I need to worry about. So here we have our gusset line is now 1/8 of an inch out here. And we don't want to interfere with that. You don't want your paper in that gusset because then it's going to buckle on you. All right, so make sure I'm not missing any pieces. So I cut out this bookmark, and we're going to put it. I like this image. I think it would make great for background. I think I'm going to put it over here. I'm not real tickled with this one, so I think I'm going to put it over here. We can have a tuck that way, or I can do it that way. I'm almost going to have to cover it if I don't like it, or put it over here anyway. You know, it looks better over there. It looks a lot better over here. And there's your tuck. And then you can save this for photo. And then for the outside, I used this. And I cut it so that I could use almost the entire piece. There is some trimming down that you will need to do because this is not quite 8 by 8. Now I've got to think this through because I need some kind of a closure, so I have limited options at this point, so you're going to get to see me play here. What I can do is use this, create, oh, but that's going to cover that up, won't it? Well, anything I do is going to cover it up. And it would take too long to fussy cut that to use it as a I'm not convinced I'm going to do this yet. So if I put those down and put this down in front of it, I'm somewhat duplicating the design, and I could pull this out. And what I have here, I don't have a lot of paper to work with, so I could use this wood grain to come across here to make pockets. Or I can use the little mouse and have more of the wood grain showing. Either way, I need to make a pocket because that's the only way this is going to close. I don't want to put something over this in the middle unless I decide I want to put magnets in, but then it's going to really have to pull to come together, and that's not going to work. So I've got to accept the gap for what it is. And hopefully you'll catch this measurement so that you don't have this issue. And then if you wanted to, you could put magnets here. You know, I wonder, I've got some stronger magnets. I wonder if it would make more sense. I wonder if they would reach through all that paper. Let's take a look. These things have given me blood blisters. They're so darn strong. so let me tape this down. And let's see if, oops, if it will pick up the, oh, it will pick up the mate. Okay, I think that's what I'll do. I'll just use a couple of magnets and I'll put them on here before I put these down. God, those things will, and it will give me a chance maybe to pull this in a little bit. It is so hard to separate those things when they... So if I pull in a little bit, it wants to move. I'm not sure why. Okay. Now let's find... I need to put this over here. Okay, so that allowed me to pull those in a little bit to close that gap. So I'm going to now tape these on because if I need to adjust those magnets for any reason. Now I'm going to follow this edge because if I set this, oh, I've got extra tape. Hold on. I just spotted a little bit of tape overhang, so I'm just going to roll it back using the side of my finger to make it go away. There we go. Perfect. All right. Get this mess out of the way. Okay, get that right side up, and then Okay, so now what we'll do is, so we've got this finished, disaster averted, but now we will wrap the tape around the entire perimeter because that's going to be your support. And I'm using 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch would be the minimum that I would ever use in framing in an album. And then I'm going to remove these two because they are pretty centrally located to where I want to put a little bit longer strip at be about 3/8 of an inch. This will be the internal support. Go through a lot of tape when you build these albums. I don't use a lot of glue unless it's smaller pieces. I know glue is cheaper, but it is very quick to dry, and I can't control it where I can control the tape. So I'm going to take these off. I'm going to turn it this way because I need to be able to see 3 of the 4 sides. Now this edge right here is where I'm going to bring this edge. And then top to bottom to make sure it's going on straight. And then I'll press. And I'll come in here. And I'll burnish those down. And then I will start to pull off the tape on the perimeter. Now, there's something I want you to watch for when you're doing this, if you've not done it before, is you have a gusset. You want to make sure this gusset is laying flat, that it's staying where it's supposed to when you lay it down. You don't want it rolling on you. You don't want it flattening out. And then we're going to get in here. Now, if you're brave enough and you want to take all the tape off, that's super. But I am not that brave. I've had to too many times take a page off and wasted a lot of undo to do that. So I just do one strip at a time. I can control what I'm doing here. All right, so now we're going to put this down. Open this up. And then we're going to give a good burnish along the perimeter of this. I want to be careful around my dragon. Okie dokie. There we go. We got it done. So I will see you on the next build. Until then.